Kingstream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Based on like what we all been like talking about, as Christians when we're like inconsistent like with our standards,
Uh-huh.
do we get to a point where have like a religious mindset because of that?
When we are inconsistent with our standards, do we get to a point where we have a religious mindset with that? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, isn't one of the parts that frustrates us about religious people is the hypocrisy, right? Like the hypocrisy of I'm going to look down my nose on somebody while I have these inconsistencies. Like that's the frustrating part, right? Is like if somebody doesn't want to consume something, I'm not mad at them. I think what the frustrating part is I've been around the block long enough. Trey's been around the block long enough where we know folks who are inconsistent and who come and show up with a judgmental attitude, whether it's liberty, whether it's whatever, sticklers for theology, whatever you want to call it, that there's some inconsistencies that they're dealing with, and it just becomes a blind spot. When I'm the most critical of others is when I have the most blind spots about my sin. That's usually the case. When I'm the most critical and I'm sitting here and I'm saying this person's this and this person's that and that person's not doing it right and this person's YouTube page is whack and this person said this wrong, I'm actually exhibiting the biggest blind spot in my own life. And when you have blind spots and you don't know them, that's when you can crash, right? If you're driving and I'm driving my vehicle and there's a blind spot, I can't see that there's a car in the other lane and I switch lanes flippantly, I can crash into somebody. And that's what happens with blind spots is you're just so flippant and reckless, paying attention to everything but the freaking road and trying to see through your blind spot that you can hurt yourself and hurt others in the process. And I think that's the part where I get frustrated is like, hey, no, I have never came on this channel claiming to have perfect theology, right? Like I know people are looking at me and they're like, oh, well, Ruslan, you speak with authority. Like I can't help that I'm charismatic and I get passionate, right? Like I'm not on here. Like that's why I'm like, hey, Trey, you're a pastor. What should we, right? I'm referring to Pastor Roy. I keep calling him Pastor Troy. Pastor Roy, Pastor Trey, other people, because I'm not up here claiming because I'm charismatic or I'm passionate or I speak with authority, people assume that I'm putting myself out there as some type of like moral high ground. And I'm saying, hey man, I have never claimed that. I believe a couple of really important core issues, like 6 or 7 of them, primarily based in 1 Corinthians 15, and I hold those really near and dear. And the rest of the stuff, I just go, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. Figure it out for yourself. Go read the scriptures and figure it out. And know that there are seasons in your life where you may have more liberty and you may have less liberty. When I hang out with Foggy Raw, I always tease him for the type of music he wants to put on. Not because I think he's evil, but just because I think, bro, you're in such a different season. Like I'm a dad. Put on some freaking Fred. Put on some Kirk. Put on some I'm Rescue. Put on some worship music. I don't want to hear what you're, and he'll just like hit me to this, and it just be so ratchet. And I laugh about it, right? But I'm not sitting here like looking down on him because he's a Christian. I'm just in a different season of my life. Here's the funny part. I tend to practice the opposite of what I'm actually presenting here in my real life, which is what people don't get. Like I literally practice the opposite. Like I listen to primarily Christian music, primarily worship music, not even Christian hip hop, like worship music, right? And I consume primarily Christian content on YouTube. That's the part that's hilarious. But what I'm advocating for is nuance, critical thinking, and for us to process these things as individuals and be in tune with what season we're in, right? Where are we in the line of culture? The biggest thing that frustrates me is when we hold again, guys, if I hold my personal convictions towards everybody in this Zoom chat, we would all be up at 5:30 at the gym by 6, worshiping to Fred and eating broccoli 2 times a day and losing weight. Like literally, that's what it would be about. Those are my personal convictions.
Heck no.
Right? Don't nobody want to live up to Ruslan's personal convictions. Y'all don't want that. You don't want that. Trust me.
Yeah.
But there's benefits to those personal convictions, right? Like getting abs. Like that's pretty dope. Like not needing as much sleep. Like feeling better, right? Like not dealing with lust as much because I eat so much freaking broccoli. My leptin levels are through the roof, and I just my testosterone is through the roof. Like you see what I'm saying? So it's like I can't hold people to my personal convictions. And if I were, you guys would all hate me, because when I get on my fitness kick and I'm like, yo, let's work out, Patreon community, let's do the outlier challenge. Don't nobody want to do that. Don't nobody want to get their fitness together. Don't nobody want to eat better. Don't nobody want to do that stuff. And you see what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, come on, we could do this. We should all get fit for the new year. And everybody checks out and they go, oh, it's too hard. I got to take a before picture. I got to count my macros. I got to eat better. You know what I mean? But those are like legitimately, God has sanctified me in an incredible way through fitness and eating better. Like incredible direct correlation to my spiritual disciplines, more prayer, more worship, more financial stewardship, more loving my wife, more laying down my life as a direct of getting my body in check. But I'm not gonna hold all of y'all to that, because those are my personal convictions. Now, is there wisdom in those? Absolutely. Is there discipline in those? Absolutely. Is there fruit of the Spirit in those? Absolutely. Can a lot of you guys stand to benefit from waking up a couple hours earlier every day? Absolutely. Can a lot of you guys stand to benefit from not eating as much pizza and processed foods? Absolutely. But I would never come on here and be like, yo, dog, you eat pizza? You're in sin. You know, that's just not godly. You know how much calories are in pizza? You know how bad that is for you, dog? All that cheese, bro, all that bread, all that fried, you know how terrible that is? I just wouldn't do that. Like I would be a schmuck. I'd be a jerk for doing that. But that's the part that, and then you could find something inside of my life that you'll be like, well, this is inconsistent here, Ruslan. You drink too much caffeine. How can you tell me about eating more broccoli? And I'm like, yeah, bro, because I've never claimed to be perfect. I've never claimed to have perfect theology. I'm trying to figure this out. But here's what I know works. The more I discipline my body, everything else in my life thrived. The more I beat my body into submission, it became much easier not to deal with lust in the way that I did before. And I could break that down, and people just aren't going to get it. But that's the point. I'm sorry. I know I just went on a big rant, Andrew. Did that answer your question? In the least.
Yeah, that definitely answers your question.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry, bro. Let me go to Trey.
Yeah, something I love about YouTube is I think you have the Mike Wingers, which I would say he's an expert. Like, he's really smart. I'm super grateful for him. But I think there's really a space online where we need less experts of the truth and more people experiencing the truth.
Yeah.
Right? And so, like, I think that's the beauty of it, is we're living the truth together. Like, that's my whole thing. Like, I say often too, the pressure is off when the posture is on. And I think it's that posture of humility and saying, I'm learning this together. I'm humbling myself in front of you. Like, that's why I like vlogging still, right? Showing the low moments. I think that's what really gives authority in people's life, to be able to say, I am not the expert you're looking for, but there's still a lot that God is doing in my life. And so I want to just give you my perspective, but please, I follow Paul, I follow Apollos. No, we follow Jesus. So we are certainly not the full picture.
We got to look at application over theory. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're coming across, even in your channel, is that there are so many broken people who are online going down YouTube rabbit holes that are essentially coming across all of this theoretical stuff, right? Yep. So it's like deep, like we're going into theology, we're talking about eschatology and pneumatology and hermeneutics and exegesis and eisegesis, right? And there are people that are like, my car's broke down and it can't move. Like, who can help me get from being broken to actually being functional?
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between theory and application.
Right.
Right. So I think what everyone's like, we have to be able to get to the point of application where you can meet somebody where they are, not be offended by what they listen to, right? Not be offended by their views. What I tell my mentees all the time is like, you have to learn how to listen past the offense. And that's from a business perspective and a ministry perspective.
Yes.
You got to listen past the, like you keep saying, when you're triggered. Like, keep listening past your trigger to actually learn and hear my opinion and what it is that I'm trying to express to you. Right. So it's like, and like Trey said, I can pull a part of truth to it, but like, it's always taken back to the application of, I'm going to listen to your story, find something broken, find something that needs mending, and then tell you how I would apply Jesus to that situation. But I have to listen long enough to where you trust me, and I can provide a solution, right? We don't want to listen long enough to hear somebody's problem. right? We want to jump in and just hit somebody with our theory, with our theology, with our ideology, with our religion, right? You have people in these chats that don't even know Jesus, and there's Christians in here arguing about Armenian and Calvinism and Reform. Like, we're having all of these theoretical discussions, and there's somebody in the chat probably struggling with suicide right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how about, like, Jesus loves you, don't hurt yourself, right? Like, you were made in the image of God. Like, you are significant, you deserve to be loved, and if you don't feel like that, find someone, right? Call us, right? Hit Ruslan in his DM, you can hit me up or whatever, but that's what we get away from when we get into these legalistic discussions, right, over secular, sacred. As Christians, our job is to make disciples and be a reflection of the light in the world. That's what we should be doing, right? So if people walk into these situations, and I see it on my timeline on Facebook especially, because most of my friends on Facebook are Christian rappers, pastors, and people who call themselves Christians. But a lot of my friends are agnostic, atheists, right, because of business connections. And if you look at my timeline, I just constantly see Christians arguing over theory when I know that your children stopped going to church.
Yeah.
I know that your daughter moved out the house when she went to college and is no longer a believer, but you're still arguing with people about politics and denominations on Facebook. So I think we got to get back to application. That's why Jesus spoke in parables.
Come on.
Right? When he was talking to regular people, Jesus spoke in theology and theory when he was talking to Pharisees and Sadducees. So we need to reserve the two differences. But if you're going to have a platform, if you're going to make music, if you're going to create content, make content that addresses the broken problem that there are people in this world that need Jesus. And let's make it as simple as possible for them to understand him.
That's great.
Right? And get to know him and love him. And
this is where I'm at, guys. I'm in a spot where we're going to cover the basics, and I'm going to keep hammering home the basics. But here's what I want you guys to know, that there is an application point. I've been walking with God long enough to know that those of you that obsess about secular music and take radical and extreme positions, yo-yo, and the pendulum will swing the opposite direction in your life. So stop, you're over here and everything is evil and can't do anything and everything, and then you're over here and you're getting drunk and you're fornicating and I've been around the church long enough to know that. Like, I've been around the church long enough to know that these theories, you're going to yo-yo the opposite. That is the practical application of how that mentality, that binary, black and white, I'm good, you're bad, Jesus, everyone else, God versus, everybody in any other community that's disenfranchised. When you operate under that, that's usually the type of life you lead. And I've seen it far too often. I've seen it far too often of folks who are so radical in their theology and their Calvinism and their self-righteous morality and whatever, and then they're all the way on the opposite end of the spectrum. Folks who I call and say, bro, you really a Calvinist? You a 5-point Calvinist? I'm a 500-point Calvinist, son. This is a real conversation. I'm a 500-point Calvinist. 7 years later, I don't know if the resurrection was literal. I don't know if Jesus is really God anymore. I don't know if I believe there is a God. When you get that radical, you're very likely to swing to the opposite extreme. Why? Because all somebody got to do is pull on one thread. We pull on one thread, all that legalism just completely goes kapoop, and then you fall apart and you don't know what you believe in. I'm careful with this stuff. Like yes, live a holy life. Yes, be set apart. Be careful with building your foundation and your framework for how you view the world. Careful for doing that on something besides the person and the words of Jesus. Be careful with that. And by Jesus, I don't mean like just the God. I mean like the New Testament, the Old Testament, God, the Word of God. Like, be careful. And a lot of you guys will be that. And a lot of you guys are that right now. You're literally hypocritical in the comment section, and then you go look at porn out of afterwards in a couple hours. Like, yeah, that happens, right? That statistically happens. So just be careful with that. Guard your heart. Don't be that person. Slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise and the hare, right? Like, there's wisdom in that when folks who take their time, build their house on the right foundation, build their house on the Word of God, on the basics of salvation, the basics of the doctrine. And then We can get into this stuff. But my thing is, you know, to Pastor Roy's point, like the application of this stuff is scary. And I don't want any of you guys pulling up in here and you're this theology and that theology and everybody's evil. And then 6 months later, you meet some girl and she's fly. And then she makes you think different. And then God tells you you're married in your heart. And then you start fornicating. And then before you know it, you leave church. And then before you know it, you're an atheist. I've seen this happen far too many times. And it's always the people running around here, 1,000-point Calvinists, I'm casting out demons, God told me this person's going to be president. It's always those people that end up on that end of the spectrum. It's never the people that are just like, look, man, I don't know, bro. Secular music, I'm just trying to follow Jesus, bro. I don't know. I'm just trying to follow politics. I don't know, man. They both look pretty terrible to me. I don't know. I'm just trying to follow you. Like those people, from my 17 years of walking with Jesus, 18 years of walking with Jesus, those people, they end up being normal, stable, contributing members to church and society and love their neighbor. So give this video a thumbs up. Hey, if you guys got questions, don't leave a nasty comment. Don't get weird. Don't be that guy. I love everybody. Hit me with a DM on Instagram. I reply to almost every single Instagram. I've had some fruitful conversations. We've got some amazing talks with people I disagree with. And we find common ground. It's super dope. So